So what happens when one of the biggest tech companies on the planet faces a series of absolutely devastating cyber attacks? How do they even begin to respond? Well, today, we're going to break down Microsoft's massive security overhaul, the Secure Future Initiative. This is a story that was literally born out of a crisis, and it's all about redemption.
And look, this wasn't just some internal memo. The stakes got really clear when the U.S. Cyber Safety Review Board dropped this bombshell report in 2024, and they did not mince words. Their conclusion was blunt. The failures were preventable. That one quote, right there, basically kicked off one of the biggest security pivots in tech history. Seriously.
So to really get what Microsoft is trying to build now, we've got to go back and look at how this whole crisis unfolded. I mean, this was a series of pretty major failures that played out in public for everyone to see. And this timeline, wow, it shows you just how fast everything went downhill. So it kicks off in the summer of 23 when a state-sponsored group gets into high-level U.S. government emails. Then, just a few months later, in late November, another group is inside the accounts of Microsoft's own senior executives. You can see the pressure was already insane, right? Microsoft announces this huge Secure Future initiative that same month, and this is all before that really scathing government report even came out the next April.
So the fallout from all this? It was brutal. And it wasn't just about a few technical bugs. The Cyber Safety Review Board just hammered them, pointing to this deep-seated, and this is their phrase, culture of insecurity. You know, this is kind of what happens when the race to push out new features completely outpaces the discipline you need to actually secure them. It meant the fix couldn't just be a software patch. No way. It had to be a complete cultural reset.
And that big reset, it came in the form of a major public promise. This was Microsoft's big company-wide answer, the Secure Future Initiative, or SFI for short. Okay, so when they first rolled this out in November 2023, the SFI was really built on three main commitments. Number one, transform how they build software, using AI to build security in from the get-go. Number two, double down on protecting identities. Basically make it way, way harder for attackers to steal your password and pretend to be you. And number three, and this was a big one, a super ambitious goal to cut the time it takes to fix cloud vulnerabilities in half. Yeah, by 50%. This was like their opening shot.
But a promise you make in the middle of a fire needs a real, solid strategy if it's going to last. So that's what they did. They took those initial ideas and built them into this permanent framework for how they're going to operate from now on.
All right, so principle number one is secure by design. And you got to understand, this is a huge shift. It means security isn't some checkbox you tick at the end. It's the very first thing you think about when you're designing anything new. It's all about being proactive, not just reacting to disasters.
Okay, next up, secure by default. Now this one is absolutely massive for all of us. For the users, it means the best, strongest security settings are just on, by default. You don't have to go digging through menus, you don't have to be a security genius to be safe. Protection is the starting point, not something you have to opt into.
And the third principle, secure operations. This is them basically saying out loud that cybersecurity is never ever finished. It's this constant cycle of monitoring what's happening, learning from every single incident, and always upgrading your defenses to stay one step ahead of whatever the bad guys are cooking up next.
So, how did they turn these big ideas into actual engineering work? Well, this is it. The SFI grew into these 6 core engineering pillars. It covers the whole shebang, from protecting identities to isolating systems. That's a really important one, by the way. It means if one customer's little corner of the cloud gets breached, they can contain it so it doesn't spread and infect everyone else. This whole thing became the detailed blueprint for their big comeback story.
All right, so that's the plan. That's the framework. But the big question is, did it actually work? Let's move on from promises and talk about proof. We're going to look at some hard numbers from their progress reports. First off, the sheer scale of this thing is just mind-boggling. Get this, Microsoft now has the equivalent of 35,000 full-time engineers dedicated just to security. They're calling it the largest cybersecurity effort in the history of the internet, and honestly, with a number like that, it's hard to argue.
And here's a result you can really sink your teeth into. They've hit 99.6% adoption of phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication for all their own employees. We're talking about the good stuff, like using a physical security key you plug in, or your fingerprint, things that a fake login page just can't trick. This is so important, because it pretty much shuts down one of the most common ways hackers get in, stealing passwords.
They're also, quite literally,
putting their money where their mouth is. They've paid out over $17 million in bug bounties. That's money they're paying to outside security researchers who find and report bugs in their systems. It really shows they're serious about being transparent and working with the good guys in the security community.
And hey, remember that whole culture of insecurity thing we talked about? Well, take a look at this. This chart shows a real, measurable shift. Sentiment among their own engineers, the people building the products, has jumped 9 points when it comes to security. What that tells you is that the people on the ground now feel more empowered, they feel better equipped to make security the priority. It suggests that this cultural change is actually happening.
So after all that, what's the big takeaway here? What can we learn from this whole journey about what security really means today?
The absolute core of it, the fundamental shift, is right here on the screen. They went from treating security as just another feature, another item on a checklist, to making it priority number one, period. And the CEO, Satya Nadella, he laid it out in the plainest terms possible. He said, if you have to make a choice between security and something else, you choose security. I mean, a directive like that from the top, it changes everything.
And you know what's great is that Microsoft's story here offers some real, practical lessons for basically any organization, big or small. When you boil it all down, the key patterns are pretty clear. Lock down access with really strong authentication, get rid of your old, outdated systems before they become a massive risk, and automate everything you possibly can when it comes to security. This isn't just advice for giant tech companies. This is foundational stuff for building a safer digital world for all of us.
Which, of course, leaves us with one last really big question. Microsoft has thrown an absolutely unprecedented amount of resources at this problem. But now, in an age where attacks are being supercharged by AI, is the whole idea of being secure enough a real destination we can ever get to? Or is it more like a horizon that just keeps moving away from us, no matter how fast we run towards it? And that, right there, is the challenge that's going to define the future of cybersecurity.